Welcome to the podcast, That Real Shit. It's real talk, offline conversations covering topics people really discuss but are afraid to. The host, I'm going to introduce myself first, and then I'm going to introduce this young man here because he has a book that we're going to talk about in our first episode. My name is Maurice Waddell. I'm an author, poet, professor, actor, martial artist, bartender sometimes. Also a video podcast host, journalist. I'm a graduate of Wilberforce University, one of the HBCUs, undergrad, and the University of Chicago. Here in Chicago, I am located in Chicago. But I want to introduce my brother from another. And we wanted to kick off this first episode because he's done something very special. I'm very proud of him. Charles E. Farmer, he is in marketing, communication. He's an author, professional journalist, video podcast host. He's a graduate of Wilberforce University, same university. We went to school together, undergrad, and the Ohio State University. He's a graduate there in Columbus, Ohio. He wrote a book in our first episode. He wrote a book called Time to Let the Little Boys Go, a father's blueprint to his son on surviving life alone. And I am proud to have him on this first podcast that we're starting out and ask him questions about this book. I have the honor of reading the book and doing the foreword to the book. And I'm so proud that he took the chance and put this book out. And a lot of people are raving about this book. So without any further ado, Charles E. Farmer, thank you for being on and being my partner in this podcast. What led you to write this book?
Wow, that's a great question. And thanks for having me. I would say over a certain period of time, over certain years, I would jot down notes. And it might have been just for therapy or personal, simple therapy or whatever, but for myself. But after writing these notes over a few years, not really like in a journal, just different places, just for myself, I would remind myself of my life and maybe some of the things that I've overcome that have been very difficult. And then the one recurring thought or the one thing that kept coming up in my brain was the lessons I learned from my dad, was my dad. I'm like, every time I thought about something or overcoming something, I'm like, man, my father said this, or my father said this. So the recurring theme in my brain when I would think about things I've been accomplished and been blessed to accomplish and the success I've had in life was always came back to my dad. And a good friend of mine was telling me too that there are some people out there that do great things, and mostly our parents and other maybe relatives or somebody close in your family that do great things, and you never hear about them really unless you hear a story, or they don't get the credit they deserve. And with that being said, I kept thinking about this. I was like, my father did a lot, and now that I'm in the midst of helping others, having others come to me for help or advice and things like that, then I thought it was only right to say, wow. My friend also said that when you write this book about your dad and some other people in your family, you're providing a voice to the voiceless. Because my dad was the type of person that would never talk about what he did. He just kind of moved forward with his life. He never just wanted credit, but certain things, and I think in our lives when people have been amazing to us and have been the keys to us being success, giving us the, how would I say this, giving us the ground rules to move forward and be successful in life and to help other people. And as you have your own families, when they lay the groundwork for you and tell you more or less like I call it the blueprint, then I think it's important to let other people know. And I think that's one of the reasons why, primarily just to let people know about the strong foundation that I had, despite it being a little quirky, maybe not following all the rules, like according to modern society, but the people that were in my life, particularly my dad, and how much he meant to me moving forward. And as the book says, surviving life by yourself.
Yeah, because I know you and I had several conversations about this book, and and some of the lessons. And I would hear some of the stories you had about your dad. And I'm like, so many people could benefit from some of the stories you would tell me. And we've known each other since college. So we were, you know, young men, and now we're men of experience. And I always admired these stories, and I've never met your father. I wish I had, but through this book, I was reading it. It brought a tear to my eye because it was almost as if I met your father, and I met him through conversations that we would have and things that he would say. I've taken um, some of the things that you've told me, the lessons that he would have for you, and I've taken that into my own life and used some of the same things that you used in this book, and say, yeah, that's some great nuggets. What are some of the, not giving away a lot of what's happening in the book, but because we want people to buy this book on Amazon, what were some of the nuggets that your dad would give you in life? And before you go into that, uh, I want you to talk about the circumstances that brought you here, as far as you talk about your mother in the book and the short experience you have with her. But I want you to lay the groundwork of how you and your father got to the point where he felt the need to teach you all these lessons to make sure that you were good when he wasn't around.
Yeah, well, the story, I guess part of how we got here is the fact that my mother and father were married, right? And they're married for a very long time. And for a long time, I guess my mother wanted to have children. And she couldn't have children. And the family members and other people her age or around her were having children. And I don't think there's that they knew of was any issues initially, but then eventually some complications came up with her health, and she was still trying to have kids, and they were married for such a long time that eventually she got pregnant with me, and she wanted to have her child, and the doctor was not recommending it because of her medical situation. So therefore, she begged them to let her have me and deliver me, and even though there was risk of losing her life
Mm-hmm.
trying to deliver me because of her medical situation. So she begged them, and they said, "Okay, we'll go with you." My dad clearly was like, "Look, I just want you, right? I mean, I would love to have a kid, but you're my wife, and that's the main priority." And I get it. But eventually, they allowed her to have me, and it's something that I think was probably one of the biggest joys of her life. I didn't get, as you mentioned, I didn't get a chance to spend a lot of time with her, perhaps maybe maximum 4 years. But I have little nuggets. Like one of the nuggets that I have, one of the things is I have a picture of my mother holding me when I was like 1 years old. And you could just see the look on her face, looking at me and being excited and whatnot. You could see me, but you could see the joy on her face and some of the things she wrote on the back of the picture. So we go there, but then eventually, of course, unfortunately, she lost her battle with her medical issues and passed when I was 4 years old. And unfortunately, it was something that she dealt with that now today is actually treatable and curable. So that kind of bums you out a little bit, but that's timing. So my dad was placed in that position where he had a young 4 year old son, and he was not, I think my dad was like just barely 40, 41.
Mm-hmm.
So he has to raise a young boy by himself. And then at that point, like most other parents, they look for somebody else to help raise them, right? Raise your son. So he wants to have a good wife, he wants to have a good mother for me. So you will look for that combination in a woman. But throughout the process, it was either one way or the other. It's like either a woman, she was wanted to be an amazing wife to my dad, didn't want to deal with me, or wanted to be my mother, and kind of had some issues with my dad down the line. So never was finding one particular one. It was either usually one way or the other. So, but with that being said, after my mom passed, my mom's folks offered to be very instrumental in my life to the point where they would take me on and raise me, allowing my father some freedom because it was very difficult, particularly during that time or any time, for a man to raise a child by himself. And most men may not be equipped for it. And they were just trying to not really get my dad out, but they were more or less trying to be supportive. And they ended up being supportive, but he told them, I appreciate y'all, but I'm going to raise my son because I promised my wife. So with that being said, that was where our journey started. So we had to deal with being alone, being by ourselves. My dad trying to figure out what he wanted to do as far as finding another mate or a wife or what have you, somebody else to help him along. But that's where our journey started. And my father continued to work and do those things, and he just kind of locked in. And I think he knew during that time what was going on. These were going to be some hard lessons, and he couldn't afford to have a soft, let's say, a soft ass little boy, because life was tough, especially for men of color.
Yeah.
And nothing wrong with being soft, feminine, if that's who you are, and that's, hey, God bless you. But I think my dad was like, "No, we gotta," and it is his. He felt it was his duty to make sure that I had the proper lessons to be ready for anything, because he was my only base, really, my really source of structure. And he was going to be one to be the one to kind of show me how life is and how to deal with it. So with that being said, that's how we started our journey. And I think deep down inside, that's what he wanted to do. And one things that are a little deeper in the book, but I'll bring it out now because I don't want you to have to wait on it, is the fact that my father had lived my life before.
Mm.
And what I mean by that, we had very similar childhoods. Where my grandmother passed when my dad was younger, you know. So my dad was only like 9 when my grandmother passed. So he lived my life. He knew what it was like to live without a mother. So with that being said, he had a little clue as to what it may feel like, what you may be missing, and perhaps what he was missing that nobody ever gave him. So living that life or having that experience before perhaps might have gave him some insight as to what a child without their mother needs.
It's so hard for me to not give up some of this book because I've read it. I've shed a tear over it a time or two, and going through this book, and there were some similarities I know I saw in my life. And your father held on to something that reminded him of his mother. And you just mentioned something that you hold on to that reminds you of your mother. Can you talk a little bit about what that was that your father held on to? I know you talk about it extensively in the book, but give folks a little bit of what he held on to and showing that parallel between you and him, because you talk about that a lot
Yeah,
in the book.
yeah. Well, and the key is that because I talk about that later in the book, but like I said, I wanted to bring it out. First of all, let me set the tone about my dad. My dad was a nice man. He was a good guy. He worked hard, blue collar worker, did everything he could to take care of his family and the people around him. But my dad was kind of no nonsense when it came to his work ethic, and he was a man's man. And what I mean by that, wasn't too many things that was soft about my dad. But when you look at him, I think you might have been confused if you got to know him because he's very humorous and hilarious at certain times. He had a great sense of humor. But if you just saw him in his normal processes day to day, if you just saw him from a different perspective, you wouldn't know that. You would think he might be mean or by his demeanor, but he was just always about business. And there's really wasn't anything soft. I don't think I ever saw my dad cry or I didn't pay attention. My dad didn't miss work. I think I saw my dad miss work over all those years. I mean, intentionally miss it because he couldn't go. Not because it's the only time I saw him, my dad had to go to the dentist and get some of his teeth pulled. Other than that, he didn't stay home for a cold or he was sniffling or no, my dad was at work. That's what he did. He worked in a foundry. He worked. So that set the tone, who he was. He was a man's man. He had respect. And then to realize that losing his mother so early, one would think he might have, I don't know, he might be missing something, right? As a man. And you're like, hey, something about not having your mom. There's just something about that. And as a man, even though you have responsibilities, one would think Yeah, there's times where you miss your mom. I never saw anything from my dad or heard anything about, man, I'm just having a bad day. I miss my mother, or because he had business to take care of. He had a child to raise, so he had time to, in the society's eyes, he didn't have time to kind of drop down and have a bad day or a bad moment. So as we move forward and my dad passes, my dad, I didn't notice until he passed and I found it. My dad kept something in a box and it was in a plastic bag. And I just wondered what it was. Come to find out that it was a dress. And I'm like, is that my mom's dress? I'm asking these questions and didn't know about it. But then I actually had a curator at a costume shop. I had them kind of look at the pictures and things of that nature. And they told me the dress was made either in the late 1920s,
Mm.
early 1930s,
Oh,
which means that's my grandmother's dress. So, as much as my father was this hardcore man or this man that was all about business and never really showed a softer side, his inner child had to be screaming for his mom that he still missed. And my dad held that dress for 50 years. So his inner child was screaming out for his mom. And to know that and knowing that he probably never had anybody connect with him and check on him about how he was struggling or what he was missing.
right.
He just kept going along. So with that being said, that along with me not having my mom in my life, that's the parallel and the most important thing that my dad did. He was everything. So my dad could cook. He was a great cook, amazing cook. He a lot of times with some of the wives that he had, he outcooked his wives. He cooked better than his wives. So when we had Thanksgiving, sometimes my dad would cook Thanksgiving.
Mm.
And he did that. So everything that a mother pretty much could do for a son, I mean, the laundry, he ironed my shirts, he bought my clothes. I mean, he was everything. He was my playmate. He was my brother. He was my sister. I mean, he was everything. And he always tried to make sure that I had some good things to kind of ease the pain. But when it came to the lessons, though, I will say this, which is it surprised me a little bit. He did everything to make sure, coddle me at times and make sure I was good. But when it came to lessons, it was live and Memorex. And what I mean by that, you ever know you have a task that you teach a kid and they try to get it right, and you go, all right, well, we're gonna practice first before we play the game. My dad give you a little practice, but then it's live.
Hmm.
So he just throw you in a scenario. So you don't get to, well, I don't want to do this no more. I'm gonna drop it down. It's like driving, whatever it was. It was kind of, well, you practice for a little bit, but now you had to learn. His part of his lessons were learning to adjust to the situation right now. Well, I think I don't want to do that because I try again tomorrow. No, right now, if you don't make this decision right now, make these choices and learn how to adapt to the situation, it's gonna go off the rails. And I'm like, well, wait a minute, could you? And he goes, no. And I might even show emotion or cry or whatever. And he goes, I don't care. Get it together, fix it, do it. You know how to do that. And I'm looking at it. I would even get mad at my dad at times, some of these lessons. But I was like, I just look at him and I said, oh, so you want me to fix it? All right, here we go. And I learned how to do that to this day. I try not to because I try to be better prepared, but those were his lessons. Like nobody's coming over here to help you. You think that man's coming to help you? I'm such a poor case. Sir, could you please help me? Give me some assistance. Wrong answer.
I know your affinity for James Brown. And when I was reading his book, I thought about the song Papa Don't Take No Mess. And I always think about that song when I'm going through this book, thinking about your father. And that was one of the things that I picked up on. I picked up that on that your daddy's a ladies' man, was a ladies' man. I mean, a ladies' man. And I want you to talk about these things. And one of my favorite stories when you mentioned about your father cooking was the dandelion story, where your father made sacrifices for you all the time. and you realizing that he was making the sacrifices and saying, "Hey, let's split this meal up," and like, no, I'm good with the dandelions. And I've heard of, I'm not old enough to have dandelion soup, but I heard of it. But
Yeah.
your father made a dandelion soup, fixed you, a nice meal, and he went out and picked dandelions and made him soup, making sure that you ate and you were fortified. But he was good with the dandelion soup. So any one of those topics you can go on and talk about, man, because there's so many I can pull out in this book. But you grab the reins right here.
Yeah, let's do the dandelion soup. So, I mean, my dad, even when we didn't have a lot of money, he always tried to make sure I have everything that I pretty much I was, as you said, full and more had more than enough. So there was a time where we were struggling to have enough food and whatever or whatnot. We always had food, but he always wanted to make sure I had what I like. You know what I like. It wasn't anything extravagant. It could be fried chicken, whatever it was. He was gonna make sure whatever he cooked, I had enough, and it was more than enough for two people. But for some reason or another, at that time, he made this stuff and he went out and then he went into the yard and it was dandelions. And my dad's from Tallahassee, Florida, down south, where it's real down there. So you learn how to live and really learn how to live off the earth if need be. So my dad went out and got these dandelions and he knew how to make them. So it tells you before he's had dandelion soup. One like his first rodeo, right? He knows what that's like. So he did what he had to do to prepare and he was okay. So when I noticed when I was starting to eat, and he said, "Go ahead and eat," and I think he ate later, but I asked him, "Why aren't you eating?" And he goes, "I'm good. Don't worry about it. You just get as much as you want." And I literally, which is, I don't know what it is, maybe my awareness as a kid, but I always thought about my dad in a lot of instances where I saw the sacrifice, and I says, "No, I'm good. I'm full." And he goes, "You better eat the rest of that food." But I'm like, "No, I want you to eat with me. There's enough." But he's like, "No, you go ahead." And I did go ahead but it's just the premise of the understanding of what he was sacrificing, what he was doing. I really appreciated that. I just did because he was sacrificing what he perhaps wanted or wouldn't have enjoyed with me for my benefit. And nobody had to point that out to me or tell me any differently, but I just understood that earlier. And I understood that in so many other instances. I knew another time where I think I was in high school and going to play on the basketball team. And I was going to a camp for the summer camp. And of course, I wanted to have some new shoes. So we go to the store, and back in the day with the leather Dr. J's, and then when they first came out, and that was the thing. So I saw the shoes, and they were beautiful. I was like, oh man, because back then, we were just getting into leather gym shoes, right?
Oh yeah, you had to have the Converse,
Yeah,
Dr.
yeah, yeah, with the star on the
Yeah,
side,
yeah,
Julie, hey, Dr. J, where'd you get those? All that. But yeah, so I saw these shoes and they were beautiful. I was like, oh man, they're the same color of my high school, the whole nine. And I saw them, I was like, oh man, those are beautiful. And I really wanted those shoes. And I went over to the shoes, I looked at them, I picked them up, and then I looked at the price. And I was like, nah, too much. So I looked at those, and I think my dad was watching me, and he saw me with these shoes in my hand. And he saw how I kept looking at them. Turn, how you do as a
yeah,
kid.
yeah.
Even though we don't try them on, you just turn
Right.
them over because you looking at everything on these shoes. So I saw the price and I put it down. And then I went over somewhere else and picked up another shoe, which was cheaper. And then my dad says, "You got what you want?" I said, "Yes, sir." He says, "What you doing?" I said, "This is the shoe I want." And he goes, "Why?" I said, "It's a good shoe." He said, "That's not the shoe you want." I said, "Yes, sir, it is." He says, "Don't lie to me." He says, what shoes do you want?" I said, "I want these shoes." He says, "Go over here and pick those shoes up." And he said, "Why don't you want those shoes?" I said, "Nah, it's all right." He goes, "Why don't I'm gonna ask you again why you want those shoes?" He said, "Don't lie to me." And I said, "Dad, they cost too much." He said, "What'd you say?" I said, They cost too much. I don't need that. I said, these shoes over here are just good as these. They don't need those. And then he goes, you let me worry about how much they cost.
Mm.
You get fitted, go get your size, and let's go. And the man took them and tried them on. They were amazing. And he says, I said, well, I just didn't want to, you know, I didn't know if we could afford them. He said, don't you worry about that. I'll get these shoes. You just do what you're supposed to do. Keep doing what I ask you to do. Go out there and show them what you're capable of and have a great camp, and I'll do that. And that's what he did. And it's things like that that you just knew that when I even thought that he was being sacrificing some things, I was clearly aware and I was like, I don't need him. It's just okay. But he was clearly letting me know, do not stop what I have for you. If I have it for you, it's yours.
Yeah, I remember reading this story. You told me this story many times about, the ladies in his life, and I'll never forget this, and I've used this with my own father, that he is lover number one and I'm lover number two. And your father kind of instilled that in you. And it was this book has like, it's like almost like a roller coaster. It has those great funny moments, and then it has those serious moments where you know that your dad sacrificed and he made a lot of sacrifices for you, but it didn't seem to bother him. And it was like he was supposed to do it, and he didn't want you to worry about anything. He had it. Also, listening to how your father kind of joined the service, I think the Navy, at an early age before he was eligible to do it, because he was kind of lied about his age and to make a life for himself. And so, we have Father's Day coming up, and I thought this would be great to have this show and talk about your dad, and hopefully it reminds people about the sacrifices that fathers make for their children. Sometimes dads don't get a good report, and get a bad rap sometimes, but to hear these stories and to think about, it forced me to think about my own relationship with my father. What do you want people to kind of come away thinking after they read this book? So you can take any one of those, man. I know I'm piling a whole lot of this stuff on there because
I mean,
it's
it's
one
what
of my
it's
favorite
about.
books, bro. It's one of my favorite books, and I go to it from time to time. So you know how we do it.
I appreciate it. So you're not gonna get off that ladies thing. So let me
No,
jump in.
no, 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 no. That was one of the best. There's so many stories about him, and I see it in you because we hang out. I see
Excuse me.
it.
You're gonna choke me up on this thing right now.
uh,
My dad was a very again likable person. He had charisma, as you say. And what that means by that is he had a way, he had a great personality, and he didn't always share with everybody, but he was a very charming individual, particularly when it came to ladies. And if he was talking to somebody's mom or somebody like that, she'll, how you doing, Miss Johns? And she go, hey, Mr. Farmer. Right? He just had a way, you could just tell where he would communicate with these ladies that they were like, wow, he's charismatic. He had a infectious personality, if you will. He drew you in. And he was kind of like that with kids too, because he was very nice with kids and kids liked him and whatnot. Even my relatives, some of my relatives just wanted to go up and they hug him because he's very inviting. He's very nice. But when it came to the women, he just that personality, he laughed, he was smooth, he was a cool dude, man, and very confident when it comes to the ladies. That's why he said, when you tell them you're lover number two, but your daddy getting old. So you got to tell my face. But that's his humor. But it was just watching him, he was just smooth. He was a little guy, when I say little, smaller than me. My dad was 5'8", but he had muscles and he worked in a foundry every day. So he would wear those wife beaters on purpose and he come out, he had the veins come out of his neck, and little dude, and be all what we call cock diesel, where you got muscles just popping out the shirt. He walk around, just kind of look at certain people and wave and whatnot, and but he just had a demeanor about him. He was a strong dude, and the ladies loved him because you gotta think about this, which was really amazing to me that my father had limited education, but it wasn't like he wasn't capable of going and finishing whatever. He probably could have went to college and finished degrees or like that, but his degree, his education was what it was. It's limited as far as the formal education, but my dad read a lot, so that means he could talk to anybody about anything.
Hmm.
So he was always learning and reading. He did crossword puzzles, so he was a very intellectual individual. He could speak about anything, about any topic. And I think that was very intriguing to women. And he knew also, too, where he was very compassionate about people's feelings. So he had he had a soft spot for people. And I think that helped him with women. And then, of course, from what I heard or understood, that women liked him because he could take care of the ladies. That's all I'm going to say. He could take
And
care of the
you read
ladies.
that in the book.
He could take care of the ladies, and the ladies liked that, and he was they liked him. They liked my dad, and my dad loved the ladies. Okay, he loved the ladies. They loved him, and all kind of ladies. He loved the ladies, and they had that understanding. So I never really saw a woman that he was connected with or dealing with to ever have any complaints about he was horrible or anything like that too. If anything, like because this is the one lesson that I feel where that I might know a little something about what he's dealing with or have dealt with in the past is it wasn't an issue of anybody not connecting with ladies, but once he connected with them from even a relationship or whatever it may be, if he ever wanted to walk away from them, that was the biggest part. As he would say, I would say, get rid of them, let them go. They don't want to walk away because a lot of times I don't think people are treated well. And if you meet somebody and you like them and they have a great relationship, you kind of want to stay. Because if a woman's been dealing with knuckleheads throughout and finally meet a guy that's really nice and treat her well and take care of what she needs, right, all the way around, even being a great support system advocate for her, that's hard to walk away from because some women may never ever get that in their lives or not have it often. So that was hard. So he's had some issues probably with trying to walk away. But that's what made him infectious. Because once you got, as they say, once you got a taste, it's like a drug, you want more.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I always said that if I had half the charm my dad had, that I'd be a bad boy. I'd be a real bad boy, and he knows it. He knows it. He'll beg to differ, but I'd be a bad boy. But I there's one story I'm not gonna mention. I don't want you to talk about because the book kind of goes through a roller coaster where it has sad moments, and then you learn some lessons in the sad moments, and it illustrated how your dad was a real charmer, and folks was like, hey, this guy is. I don't want to mention the story because it's a great story in the book where you realize that even in the situation that happened when one of the ladies came up to you and asked you a question. So anyway, I know one of the things that you and I talked about is that the importance of finding your people. And you my people, I'm your people. And I always really love that line. And you said it over the years, like you got to find your people. And your people don't necessarily have to be your family,
Mhm.
but there are people who share a common bond, and you see them and they see you. How are you able to find your people in this process?
That's a great question. I think first started with my dad, understanding I think you have to understand who you are first, right? You have to set the tone for who you are, what you represent, not so much what you put up with, but how you want to live your life. And once you know and are accustomed to who you are, then you kind of go, all right, there's certain principles or things that I want to follow in life and certain things I want to do. Some people are different because they're group people. I think because of the lessons that I learned and some of the things in life I had to deal with by myself, I never really was the biggest fan of groups. Not saying I can't be a part of a group. I'm a hell of a teammate. I'm gonna do what I need to do. I don't need to be in the front. I don't need to be the leader. I'll play my position in the group. And if I have something I can provide to the group, great. But oftentimes in the groups, it may be somebody jealous of one another or somebody, the group may have another agenda. And sometimes I may not agree with what the agenda of the group is. So when you talk about finding your people, it's more or less somebody that being part of your people is somebody, excuse me, that will respect you, somebody that may understand you. And what I mean by understanding you is people or someone that respects you for you. We not always agree. You might do something different than I do because of our experiences, but I'm not going to judge you, particularly if you're not harming yourself and you do something a different way. I'm not going to look at you differently or try to put you down because it doesn't resonate with how I work. But in that space, when we're together, we support one another. We make sure everybody's good, and we need to make sure that for the most part, we're all on the same plane as we move forward in life. The way we think, the way we go about handling things, and if you know too, if you need somebody to have your back, your people are gonna be there. You're like, man, such and such and such. You be like, man, you did that again. What are you thinking? No, it's not really that, but it's really understanding that, okay, we can laugh at something, we can joke, but we're there to support you no matter what. But we're not coming down on you because you had a hiccup. And we're there, and your people will do that. They don't care how much money you have. If you up, you down. The key is we're here. We're going to keep a stable position, a place for you no matter what. And you can be yourself. You can be vulnerable. As they say, it's a safe space. And that's all it is. And it doesn't matter. Your people doesn't matter. Your real people. If you see them every week, once a month, every 3 years, your people are your people because that's who they are. Time has nothing. It's like when you have your real people, you pick up just like I saw you yesterday.
Yep.
Those are your people. And it does not always have to be family, because family can be, Lord knows, they can be on some other things. Just because you blood don't always make you the best of family to one another. And they don't have to always be your people. But the point of it, circling us back all the way around, the people love you, they respect you, they care for you, and they're gonna do everything they can, which may even give you some words that may not always that you agree with. If they see you traveling the road, they may be a little shaky. That's the beautiful of your people. We all come together and find out what's going on, checking in, seeing what you need, and then also, if we have to, kind of mentioning something that we see. And you may not agree, but at least you know we're looking out for you. Those are your people, unequivocally. It doesn't matter. They got your back. They care about you when you're sick. They checking on you, even though you walk around here. Oh, I'm a man. I don't never get. Okay, you might need somebody to just check on your big head self and make sure you're all right. Those are your people. And when I say that, find your people and also make sure that all the people in the group, your people, deserve to be checked on like they checked on you.
I know as a black man, sometimes it's hard to find spaces where you feel like you belong. What are some of the lessons that your father taught you to help you feel like you belong wherever you were? And I think of one particular story of when we were in college. I didn't even know this, but you were thinking about leaving. And we had some of the same professors, and we'll talk about that in other podcasts about how influential those professors were to us. But how did he make you feel like you belong in this society?
I think the biggest thing was my dad tried to remind me of the time that I was living in. And he used the example of him being older, stuff he went through, and where he was at in his life. Not saying, oh, wow, I wish my life was better. Never saying that, but just letting me know how fortunate I was at the time and the opportunities were available to me if I tried. And to take advantage, full advantage of what's in front of you. And college was like, I never thought I was a college material. To be very frank about that, because I'd always been provided this identity of what a college student looks like, from grades, the way that you think, and even one of my counselors telling me that I should think about a trade school. And I said, but my dad said I should go to college. And I'm like, well, maybe they got answers that my father doesn't have, but it still pissed me off. But the point of it was, my father was like, I don't care about none of all that. I'm just telling you, in order for you to advance and do what you need to do to be successful, we need you to go to school. And he kept harping on that. You belong there. But I think also too was throughout the lessons, letting me know, but also having me learn who I am, what my strengths were, what my weaknesses were. And no matter who I go up against or whatever, if it's a situation, I'm prepared to handle it. Now, does that mean I'm going to be the winner? I'm going to come up on top? No, but it's not, I'm not going to be prepared. I'm going to be prepared. And that's what I mean when you say, you belong in spaces, you're prepared. But then the other part that I'll throw out there, and this is just for me, there are a lot of places, a lot of spaces that you say you fit in or groups that you belong in. I took that a step further. Okay, yeah, I could be over here. I could be at this group. I was very limited, and to this day, I don't just jump in any group because I don't want to just do that because I'm like, I don't need that group. I have what I need. I have my people. Now, some people may see that as standoffish or whatever, but for me, I just don't need to be around a bunch of people just because like I'm lonely or something. No, I'm independent. I've been working this game for a long time, to perhaps to my demise, as some would say, because I don't let people in, a lot of people in. So I've been told that too. But if you're my people and I want to connect with you, even in the groups I do choose to connect with is by choice and it's on purpose. A lot of people are part of this club over here, this group of people, this people over, and to each their own. I don't need all that. If I'm with you and I'm in, I'm dedicated to it. That's what I'm going to do. But I think the key is knowing thyself, being comfortable with yourself, understanding who you are and what you represent and what you deliver. Then that way, no matter what room you go in to, you can walk in with your head up high, with confidence and believing in yourself, particularly your skill set, that you belong in there and you're going to sit down and belong at that table.
One of the parallels that I picked up on you with your dad is that I've known you for a long time, and I don't care where we are and what we're doing, people gravitate towards you. I mean, when you were on the yard, people farm, everybody knows farm. When we're in Las Vegas, people are just coming to you like, hey, such and such and such. Maybe even celebrities, famous people, or people you met over the years. We've gone in places to have our favorite beverages, and they know you're there. How did what did you pick up with your dad that maybe it's something in the DNA? I don't know, but he seemed to be that way where people just gravitated towards him, and it just seemed like you're that person. It's almost like you inherited that, and it just comes natural to you because everybody knows you. I mean, we could be in some places where I don't think anybody knows us, and people will pick you out and start talking to you, and you have that way of bringing out the best in people. I've always noticed that about you. Even when I was a freshman, you were a junior. You always kind of paid attention to me and brought out the best in me. What did your dad do? How did he kind of fortify that in your life?
I think I just watched him, the way he treated people. And I always thought about the factor that no matter whatever level, everybody deserves to be treated the same. So it's the dude sweeping up, it's the homeless dude. They deserve to be recognized and talked to. I don't mean I gotta stay with you a long time or whatever, let you take advantage of the situation. But I think you had to just, it was the way that you respect people. And people recognize that. It can be other people that if you're at a restaurant and the way that somebody talks to a waiter or somebody, or you can tell when the people are doing, particularly when working or whatever, you can tell when people are struggling, trying to get through and trying to make sure they're trying to provide service. And they may not be the best at it. But whatever it is, no matter what level you're on or where I see you at, I know my dad pretty much treated people with kindness and was the same. Now, if you get out the box, you gave me reason to come at you and check you in, we'll do that too.
Mm.
But we give everybody a fair shot. And I think the way that you treat people with kindness and showing them that they're okay and you respect them, that's it. And I think that just goes along across the board because that's what everybody wants. Everybody wants to be liked or somebody wants to be treated fairly. And I think that's what it was, no matter what the level is. The people on the level with the celebrities, they are just regular people. And I learned that from covering sports, that most of the guys I became real cool with that are celebrities and people go, they're big fans of, they just want to be treated regularly. And we still had that bond because it's like, hey, man, hey, what's going on, man? I'm like, oh my God, it's, no, cool.
Was
What's
this
up, boy?
such? I'm like,
Yeah,
what?
just, oh my God, all that. What? Remain calm and just be cool. And they like that because even though they know who they are and you know who they are, sometimes they just want to be regular. And then on all levels, people just want to be treated decently. And I always try to do that, unless you give me again a reason not to. And I think I got that from my dad. My dad, particularly with kids, man, because there's some adults that want, if they're not your children, they don't have nothing to do with no dang on kids. You understand what I'm saying? They be like, man, when we come up here, this is an adult thing. Okay, what the kid is there. This is their children. Man, I'm about to put them to bed. No, you don't. You gotta learn how to deal with situations. People have situations like a man dating a woman with children. I thought they was going over their father's house. I mean, they live here. But the principle of it is learning how to deal and not be such a, I wouldn't want to say, a person that is so full of themselves, they don't know how to appreciate what's happening or learn how to adjust or be versatile in the situation. And you just got to treat people because we all have stuff, we all have things we deal with, and most times in our life, everything's not ideal. But if somebody realizes that you're genuine
Hmm.
and you're at least showing that you really give a daggone or care, or at least showing some compassion, it just take you a long way.
Yeah, because I remember I was a freshman. I'm like, why is this junior? I mean, why is he taking the time out to, to pump me up and pump me up and talk about sports and all that other stuff. One of the things that I wanted to talk about is that I know I'm pushing for another book. I'm pushing for book two because you got some more stories to tell.
What
And
you talking about, Bruce?
yeah, and this book is kind of, to me, part one
Mhm.
because it leaves you at the end. Okay, I'm wondering what's going to happen next with this story, and I think you did it on purpose, and I'm glad you did it on purpose because you got some more stories to tell. But I want you to think about any nuggets or anything else that you want people to learn from this book after they read it.
Yeah, I guess there's a book too. God willing, the creek don't rise, because somebody told me I needed two books because I didn't have enough room to put everything in one, which was spot on. So appreciate you for that. And I think the nuggets when we talked about that before is truly understanding again like who you are, again who your people are, and understanding that from this perspective of my this quarter or quarter and a half of my life, we got to take care of our babies too, man.
Mm.
You got to think about the children. Can't just think about them as something that you had or something whatever you use for whatever reason, and like they get on your nerves and it's just an annoyance, become more of an annoyance. You literally are crafting and molding little people that are going to grow and become their own people and learn deal with life in a certain kind of manner, and learning how to be prepared for life is hard because some parents didn't have perhaps the best situation. But when you had to take your situations and try to help your children live better than you did. But you have to, even times, kids are, most of them are sponges. Kids want to be loved. They do want to be directed. They do want to be disciplined. And I'm saying you got to beat the hell out of nobody, but you got to give them orders, something that they follow. If they follow these plans and they see that by doing what you ask them to do, they have more success because they understand how things work. Like I have a nephew that I talk to my nephew all the time. And I said, you just don't want to be just part of the crowd when you can be on the next level. Everybody might be on the first floor, but you can get to the second, third, or fourth floor because your awareness, your understanding, your discipline, and knowing what you can do. That's okay to be on the first floor. That's where you reside. That's who you are. But why not be better when you're capable? And that's something that he's wrong with. And I say all the time, that's why you have to dive in to your children, pay more attention to them, find out about them, who they are, personalities, what are their gifts. And you do that, that's going to help them be happy because now they're headed in a direction where they can start to be successful because they can do this, they can do that. Instead of just saying, I don't know what I want to do. We got to find out. Everybody doesn't play basketball. Everybody don't play football. Maybe somebody plays the clarinet. Maybe somebody wants to be a ballet dancer. Maybe somebody wants to be a choreographer. Whatever it is. Somebody might be a draftsman, a dentist, doctor, whatever it is, you have to take time to find out what it is or what some of the skill sets and traits that your child may have or some other people in your family and encourage them to pursue because a lot of times children need a little guidance to push them in the right direction, even though they may not recognize their talent. And that push can go a long way.
And you illustrate that so well with talking about little Charles in the book. That's the parts that got me, little Charles. Tell them where they can get the book, man.
Yep, Amazon all day long. Time to let the little boys go. Amazon all day long. Also, too, I think we have like a Kindle version as well that you can purchase if you just want to have it on your tablet. We're going to be doing some other things too as far as promotion. And one day we might work on that hardback and definitely at some point audio. So we definitely appreciate the opportunity. And for those that have already bought the book, thank you, thank you, thank you for the support. And for those that are planning to, thank you as well. And also, too, if you read the book or you want to know more, there's some ways to reach out to me. Don't be afraid. Don't be a stranger. Put out some notes. Let's chop it up. Who knows? I'm not saying I'm a Nostradamus or nothing like that, but let's chop it up if I can be of assistance in any way. You never know.
Folks, it's that real shit. We'll be back with another podcast.